What's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to our Crows OP, and this is a tier zoo video. I am a bit hungover by the way, so if I seem hungover, I apologise, but I do feel a bit brutal to be honest. But in terms of crows, they are one of the smartest animals out there. From what I've seen, they have like memories, like they'll remember stuff that you've done to them, you know. Like they've got crazy memories. I think it's crows anyway, or yeah, but some sort of bird, and I assume it is the crow. Just really smart, and I don't know how they managed to just get all the genes or all the sort of the ability to be smart, because a lot of other birds don't seem as smart. I mean, to be fair, bird like seagulls, they know where food is at, so they'll go to certain locations, basically city centers where people eat, and stuff like that. So I guess birds do have their wits about them. But like I think of pigeons, for example, they are the dumbest bird from what I see. Maybe they're a lot smarter than I actually realise. But hey, we're gonna see what crows, like how crows have become so OP, or if they are OP, because maybe there's a lot of drawbacks to them. I don't know. But let's check this out. Hopefully, you're going to enjoy. Links are in the description to my Patreon, where you can see reactions that I can't post to YouTube. And let's check this out.
They've already lost. They just don't know it. Hit him from behind. Stop looking at me! Attack! Save it for the enemy! We've lost control of the command post.
What the fuck? What was going on there?
Primates are notorious for their incredibly broken intelligence stat, which grants them access to incredible advanced techniques such as tool use, coordinated team strategies, and even bartering and trade. But primates are not the only faction in the game with a high intelligence stat. Cetacean, cephalopod, and bird mates also commonly opt not to spec
Scary
powerful
bird.
damage dealing
What is this bird here? Jesus Christ, look at the size of it.
abilities, and instead invest into leveling up their brainpower skill tree. While this does seem like a risky choice, leaving the player more vulnerable in direct 1v1 combat, in actuality this often results in a much less risky playthrough, as the player's intelligence opens up more options for them to progress that don't require winning in combat. This is especially true of the bird faction, as their ability to fly already allows them to quickly escape most unfavorable combat encounters. Today, we're going to discuss one
Well, there you go, the seagulls, man. Bloody hell, just outwitted a cat.
of the two main intelligence-centered bird builds, the
Outsmarted.
faction that contains crows, ravens, and magpies, the Corvid. This video is going to focus mostly on crows as an example, but generally what I say in this video should apply to most Corvids. First, let's discuss their stats, as well as the abilities and strategies that exemplify them. We'll begin with their stealth stat, which Corvids aren't particularly excellent in. The most popular Corvid skins are either Jet Black or Piebald, neither of which grant the user that strong of a stealth bonus. In fact, in snowy areas, Jet Black feathers are actually one of the least effective choices when trying to remain hidden. A dark appearance is most effective as camouflage at night, but crows and other Corvids are not nocturnal builds, so they aren't really gaining this benefit from it. Now, granted, stealth typically isn't all that important for birds, given how agile and vigilant they are. Plenty of other high-tier avian builds, like for example parrots, are arguably some of the least stealthy birds in the game, and they do just fine. You could even argue that Corvids are even less stealthy than their black feathers initially appear, as their iridescence actually makes them even easier to see for certain other players, typically other birds.
Glowing.
Ultimately, I think it's safe to say stealth is not an important part of their game plan, at least nowhere near as important as it is for ambush predator builds like the owl. The main predators a crow needs to worry about are raptors, and because of the raptor's keen eyesight ability, it's unlikely having a higher stealth stat would make much of a difference anyway. The crow's defense and constitution stats are fairly average for a bird, which is to say not great. Birds have hollow bones, and their feathers offer fairly little in terms of defense. Feathers do absorb some blunt force damage, but when it comes to slashing and piercing damage, it's nearly useless. And because of their hollow bones, which make them more vulnerable to blunt force damage, the benefit there kind of cancels out as well. Snakes, cats, raccoons, raptors, and dogs all have a high chance of taking a crow out in one hit, so they cannot let their guard down when interacting with any damage dealer builds. Given that their playstyle necessitates taking some risk, pro players definitely wish they had more room for error. Thankfully, their next stat makes it pretty easy to avoid damage. The crow's mobility is a little above average for a mid-sized bird, which is to say, excellent.
The editing on this channel has got crazy, by the way. God damn.
Birds in general are just extremely agile, both on the ground and in the air, making them extremely hard to land an attack on if they see you coming. Some bird builds, like geese and junglefowl, require significant startup in order to get airborne, meaning that they can't rely on their flight to escape danger if the danger is already right in front of them. Crows are not one of these bird builds, and in contrast, the startup on their flight move has some shockingly broken frame data, and allows them to quickly and easily reposition themselves in basically any direction in 3D space almost instantly. This makes their ability to dodge attacks one of the best in the entire game, and makes what would normally be fairly dangerous positions, such as right next to a powerful predator, quite safe as long as the Corvid doesn't use any laggy moves.
What the hell?
This synergizes well with the Corvid's combat moveset, as we'll discuss in a moment. Corvids are
They are just fearless, man. They really don't give a damn.
blessed with many high stats, but power is not one of them. Their ability to deal damage is one of the weakest in their weight class, as their only attack option is a simple pecking strike. This move has quick startup and very little end lag, but its damage is egregiously low. Simply attacking with this move will deal minimal damage to anything larger than an insect. Most players will be able to ignore this attack's damage. However, this doesn't mean a crow's attacks are useless. It just means they've got to be clever about how they use them. A well-placed peck can provoke an attack, and if you're able to move out of the way quick enough, the enraged player will end up being forced to lash out at whoever just happens to be nearby, and create an opening for the Corvid player to capture an objective.
So that was the intro. I wasn't really paying attention. I don't know. I was probably daydreaming. That is unreal. How has it done that then? And also, why is that bird reacting so slowly?
Shout at whoever just happens to be nearby, and create an opening for the Corvid player to capture an objective, steal some loot, or escape trouble. It might seem like a jank strategy, but really this is the bread and butter of Corvid gameplay, and can lead to massive swings in advantage. The chance to afflict the enraged status effect scales with the user's intelligence stat, so the reason this strategy works so well is that the Corvid's intelligence stat is
What the what the hell?
ridiculously high for a non-primate build. Corvids are tied with parrots for the highest intelligence stat in the entire avian faction. And in addition to enabling the goading strike moveset, having high intelligence grants Corvids access to a lot of other powerful techniques too, including the ability to use tools. Tool use is one of the most notoriously powerful abilities in the entire game, and in Crows this is no less true. By using hook-shaped wooden sticks, Crows can score kills on grubs that are normally safe from everything except for woodpecker attacks. And given how many expensive niche perks woodpeckers need to spec into in order to perform these sorts of drilling attacks, the ability to bypass all of that investment while still gaining the same rewards is a huge boon to the Crows.
No
But
way.
high intelligence has far more benefits than just allowing Crows to copy the success of hyper-specialized builds. Arguably the most important benefit
Bro, they are literally humans. Like, they have human brains in a bird. How is such a small brain? How can you do so much with such a small brain? What am I seeing? I knew they were smart. I didn't know they could do these kinds of things. I thought it was just more like memory, which also is, I guess it is involved with memory too, but they can like solve problems. Like that is wild.
is team tactics. This is what allows baboons to fight off lions, what allows ants to bring down tarantulas, and what allows wolves to prey upon bison. When crows work together, they can capture territory and control points of interest that they'd otherwise be helpless to defend.
Wow.
They can even rescue each other from what would otherwise be guaranteed lethal attacks, using a tactic called mobbing.
No.
Mobbing is a strategy most commonly seen in birds, consisting of bombarding a single target with a barrage of both physical and sonic attacks. On their own, these would be easy to shrug off, but when you're getting pecked at and screeched at from all directions at once, it inflicts heavy physical and psychic damage. This is what allows social corvids, like magpies and crows, to successfully chase away predators several times their size. Ravens, on the other hand, tend not to really need the help, as
Bro, ravens are badass, man. They are the most badass, but I mean, obviously you've got like eagles and stuff, but in terms of like, just forget eagles and I guess vultures. Vultures are a bit crazy, right? But yeah, these are badass, man. Ravens.
they're large enough to handle most opponents one-on-one, but can still team up in order to lock down a good source of carry-on. Alternatively, they may even ally themselves with wolf players, leading them to a carcass and letting them do the work fighting off their competition before sharing in the rewards. Anyway, that's a basic overview of the Corvid build. Now let's talk about their matchups. The Corvid matchup chart is heavily dependent on how effective their goading strike and mobbing techniques are against a given target. Luckily, because of how high the Corvid's intelligence stat is, the list of targets goading strike works against is quite...
That is so sick, bro. I'm learning so much. I love birds, man. I feel like when I'm older, I'm just, not even when I'm older, just, there's going to be a point in my life, probably in my 30s, I'm just going to be bird watching, man. I don't feel like I'd see stuff like this, but birds are so cool. They are so much smarter than you realise, and this sort of stuff is insane.
long. It is best against builds with lower intelligence stats. Things like vultures, things like reptiles, and things like rodents. What's more, this technique even works on one of the Corvid's 2 primary threats, feline builds.
So why is it doing that to the other cat? Do they want them to fight for what reason?
Deadly
Oh, what? So the cat dies and they can eat it? Is it maybe that? I don't know.
as cats are, they're often
Obviously, I'm not saying the cat will die, but is that just sort of what it's thinking?
quite reactive and easily aggroed. So goading strike is the perfect tool to redirect their ferocity. This move is admittedly less effective against the Corvid's other main concern, raptors. However, thankfully the mobbing technique is quite effective against raptors, so for both of their main threats, the Crow players have options. The only builds these techniques aren't that effective against are other high intelligence builds, such as monkeys and parrots. Because of their extremely strong social bonding and top-tier intelligence stat, parrots are highly resistant to psychic damage and do not turn on each other easily. In fact, when pestered by a Corvid, they are likely to defend each other fiercely using their own, more powerful beaks and louder shrieks. One-on-one, they're fairly evenly matched, so it tends to just come down to size. But in groups, Corvids tend to have difficulty forcing parrots away from an objective. As for monkeys, their higher HP allows them to more easily ignore the pecking attacks of a crow, and they're used to getting their tails tugged all the time by their own party members, so a crow doing it is unlikely to provoke a punishable response. Crows and parrots have an interesting dynamic. I've said in previous videos that I believe parrots to be the more viable build. They have higher dexterity with their beaks, their sonic shriek attack is incredibly effective, they're more social, and arguably more intelligent even. Yet, of the 2 most intelligent bird builds, there's no denying that in the city biome, Corvids are much more successful.
I'll be honest, I didn't even know parrots were, like, birds that were intelligent. I just thought they were beautiful looking birds. I didn't know there was actually much to them other than that. Which goes to show how much I really know.
I think the reason for this is that even though parrots are indeed more powerful on their own, and are better at using most tools than crows are better at using the most important tools.
But of course they are, because they can literally speak. I mean, I know they don't actually speak, they just repeat what you say, right? And they only repeat certain things, I think, from when they're younger, from what I know. So maybe I shouldn't be so surprised that they are quite smart, but I didn't know they could actually, like, fight and stuff, to be fair.
Other players. From provoking attacks and redirecting aggression, to using passing vehicles to deal damage for them and unlock high-value loot, Corvids are the best of the best when it comes to using other build strengths to cover for their own shortcomings. And if the human build's dominance is any indication, co-opting the strengths of less intelligent builds is one of the strongest strategies you can possibly execute in the game. And it's for this reason that Corvids sit proudly in S tier. Speaking of builds with a high success rate within the city biome, another creature that thrives in cities is the centipede. With their quick, twitchy movement and flat shape, they have no trouble weaving through all of the nooks and crannies common in urban environments. This is the subject of my next video, which will be out on YouTube in a month or so. However, if you'd like to watch that video right now, you can access it a month in advance on Nebula, the sponsor of today's video. Now, fascinating insect that has the character really helpful, give knowledge about the who can master supports me directly.
Secure that bag, baby. Get that money. Well, there you go. Crows, man. Unreal. A crow invited his buddies over to hang out, but they didn't show up. He was charged with attempted murder. What? You know a build is highly viable when a guild of them is referred to as a murder. Oh. What the fuck? Okay, now that explains the first joke. In my opinion, this is the best video on the channel without question, no second thoughts. I do love the channel. It is very good. Like, this was a really goddamn interesting video. They're all interesting, but crows, man, something special, honestly. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this reaction. And yeah, that's it. Until next time, like, subscribe, and peace.